Episode 18. Don't believe your own BS. Introducing Danny Gleeson on the BTS Creative Academy podcast. With me, your host, Martin Colton.
Oh, it's quite nervy, isn't it?
Nervy? Sit down with me.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
Well, it's... I don't know, it's because you're asking me my opinions on things. And
Am I? Am I going to ask you?
normally I have to force them upon people.
Danny, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, and I'm glad you're coming through on this here because this is blocked.
Oh, good. But you can hear yourself as well? Because that's...
Yeah, I can hear myself.
you can hear yourself. You know the mic's working.
Yes.
Good.
Well, when I blow...
1, 2, 1, 2.
Hang on, let me try this.
So like I said, open the bottle of water.
Does this
before we
work? Yeah, I
start.
can hear myself.
You can hear yourself. Good. Just
It's not
Yeah,
a
yeah.
traditional way.
yes. Bottle of water open. Therefore, it shall not spill.
Thou shalt not spill the
So
unwritten commandment.
what we do to start is we just give a little clap. One
Okay.
clap together, just so I can link the video and the audio. Can you do it with me? 1,
Okay.
2, 3. Sweet. That was
Marvellous.
nice and in sync, wasn't
It's
it?
cheaper than a clapperboard.
Yeah, exactly. Just get the guest to do it. So, welcome, Danny.
Hello.
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 How are you?
Yeah, like the weather improving.
It is. It's quite warm. I'm in shorts.
I know.
and-
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah. Get my knees out. So
Last time I got my legs out, there was all sort of injunctions put against me, so I just decided to keep them covered.
was that the real reason, though, Danny?
No.
But it is rather warm out there right now, isn't it?
It is,
We're
it is.
finally having summer here in the UK, or in this part of the UK.
At the start of meteorological autumn,
Of course.
naturally.
Like, when else should we have
I'm
the
starting
summer?
to think that the weather's run by the British Rail Service. It turns up eventually.
Exactly. So what's going on in your life right now, Danny?
Nothing really.
Nothing.
No. Family life is what's important at the moment.
Okay, Of
What with
course.
kids going back to school and stuff, I've
Mhm.
been doing my best to help out with school stuff. And yeah, just generally getting on through life and the trials and tribulations that it throws in front of you.
Yeah, tell me about your family.
My family, I've got a very loving, tolerant partner.
You're taking this very slowly, aren't you? Let's take
I-
this step by step
Yes,
as we think of the words to perfectly describe my lovely wife.
yes,
Because she will be watching and analysing.
Yes, this is the worrying thing. Yeah, I've got fantastic son, and 2 truly wonderful 10-year-old daughters. My son's at 18, going on 19, and yeah, I might sound like a gushing parent on this one, but I couldn't really be much prouder of him.
Nice.
And the fact that he's got off his backside and done something,
Okay.
rather than constantly stuck in front of a screen.
Tell me what he's up to.
Well, he's part of Harlow Rock School. He's at that awkward age where you're not quite an adult, you're no longer a kid. So he's sort of finding his feet in this great multiverse of ours. And it's not easy these days for
No.
kids, you know. So yeah, I'm glad he's got the right sort of motivation. And yeah, mum can be very motivational. She can be for me anyway. Oh, I'm in trouble now, aren't I? No.
And what about your daughters?
My daughter's 2 10-year-olds, twins.
Yeah.
Eva and Lana. Yeah, they're going into year 6 now, so they have all the stresses of SATs coming up, which really aren't a stress, which is what I'm trying
No.
to get them to
But
understand.
it is put on them, isn't it?
Yeah, rather unfairly. But then a lot of things are put on kids that really shouldn't be. They're having to make more adult decisions, a vital part of their lives, when they should be discovering the world, discovering themselves and their place in it.
Mhm.
You know, making their mistakes, playing their games. That's important.
Yeah, rather than I feel like 10-year-olds now are in a they're getting put in a place of judgment, aren't they, with the way SATs are?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
SATs are massively unfair. I remember when I was at school, we didn't really have SATs. We had an English test, we had a maths test, um, and basic literary skills, literacy skills, sorry. And yeah, and then from there we went to secondary school and we were put in whatever groups or classes we were needed to be put in. Nowadays, you've got to almost contend with another school to be on top of a league table. And when you're taking the focus or making the focus more about your position in that league table and your Ofsted results and everything else, then you're sort of sacrificing part of the child's education. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any benefit to the way the system is at the moment for kids?
No, no. This is one of my bugbears. I've got many bugbears, people, lots of them. I think that the biggest crime that we are committing against our children, our kids, in society at the moment is we're simply just robbing them of an imagination. You know, most things that they do isn't thought out because it's already there in front of them on a screen in a virtual world. They don't converse with anyone in the traditional sense that we've evolved to converse with people. So everything they want, everything they need is there in front of them and provided for. So in a way, we're robbing them of that imagination, that let's pretend mentality that I believe children should have is something we should foster in children, and we should nurture in children, because without imagination or people using their imagination, then we run out of future inventors, future thinkers, future philosophers. And with the world that we're living in now, mate, we can do with a few of them.
So what would you say to your 10-year-old daughters then, that they're about to go into these SATs, they're about to do all these examinations and be judged? What would you say to them to give them hope for their futures?
I will tell them that it's not as important as maybe you hear in the news. I mean, kids are quite savvy these days. They watch news. They have their own news programs and stuff. Don't listen to the media pressure that's being put on them. Do the best that they can, achieve whatever they can, and at the end of it, I'll still love you. You know, it's not a measure of who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a measure of whether the educational system is working and whether the school is good enough, I suppose, to be able to provide that education. And the school that they're at the moment, I can't argue with them. They've been brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Really good school.
What is it about the school that's good?
Management of the school, the attention that is really child focused. You know, variations in subjects and topics, the way that they're taught, and yeah, as I say, really good school. Headmistress is fantastic. I can't say I've had a problem with any of the teachers, which is amazing because I usually have a lot of problems with authority.
So they've managed to. Have they contained you? How have they managed that to make sure Danny's happy?
There's no pretense. You know, certain schools you've got this definite. You're the teacher. You're the parent. I'm the teacher. You know, and we've got to maintain that relationship. I like to have a joke with people. I like to have a laugh. I can't take things too seriously, because you stop laughing at things, then it's definitely a problem. You know, and yeah, I feel like I can just go in there, have a laugh, and come out again. And if there's a problem, then it will be solved. It will be dealt with. You know, and it's not just the school. I believe that a lot of it is down to the attitude of parents as well. This is where I become very unpopular, because I've seen a lot of examples of kids leaving the school, and then all of a sudden it's almost like education has stopped for the day. And it's like, education never stops. Even now, at my grand old age, um, even now it's I'm learning every single day in every single way. And that's
And
important.
how do you do that?
Just paying attention. looking and being aware of what's around me, taking inspiration from what's around me, ideas from what's around me, looking at what are perceived as problems, but rather than seeing it as a problem, just going, it's a glitch. How do we solve it? I mean, we can all sit there and moan until the end of days about every single problem that exists in the world. But unless you have a solution or you're prepared to work towards it, however small, you don't have to make big, grand gestures to make change. But yeah, as long as you're aware of everything that's around you, then and the people that are around you, people are important. People are important. Don't expect too much of them. Don't expect too little of them. Just treat them as people.
Mm. Yeah, no, see, that's interesting because that brings me on to my next thing. That you talk about people and people being important. You're someone that I see is very actively involved with community groups.
Yep.
You're very actively involved with community theatre. You're part of a community garden. Is that the right way to put it?
Community farm.
Community farm.
Yeah, Hearts and Essex Community Farm, guys.
Rock school as well.
Yeah, Harlow Rock School.
Yeah.
I'm a trustee on the with Harlow Rock School.
Anything else?
I just turn up, say what I say, do what I do, and then disappear again.
You get involved. You get involved with these groups, don't you? You get
Yeah.
involved with groups of people, and you tend to take a. I'd say you take a position of leading sometimes. Would you?
I don't intend on doing that. But there are times when, you just see the situation needs to be grabbed by the scruff of the neck and shaken about a bit, and but I always like to go places to find just how deep their ethos, their message is, and how much they believe in it, and to, I don't know, chuck ideas in. The world needs more ideas. As I say, the world's getting lazy.
You're an active member, aren't
Yeah.
you? You don't sit. You don't
Yeah.
sit. So maybe not a leader as such, but you're an active member. Doesn't sit back. You get actively involved.
Yeah, I like to think that I turn up to places and just sit in the corner and just see and observe. But there's always something that hooks me. Eventually, I'm like a really hungry fish, And whatever maggot's dangling, I'll chomp on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you do with it once you've got one?
What's that about?
I don't know. That's
I don't know where that came
one of
from.
the strangest metaphors. Okay, so once you've got this maggot, what do you do with it?
Question it. Question things. If you're to learn, then
So you're holding this little maggot and you're saying,
I'm questioning
why?
it. What is it about you? What are you? Who are you? Where do you come from? Not in the literal sense.
Yeah.
I come from Bishop Stortford. Yeah, right. That's just like, sorry to say this, but it's Harlow of Hertfordshire, isn't it? Really? All the people in Stortford are going, I hate this guy. But yeah, I don't mean it like that. It's like, where are you coming from? What is your story? Stories are important. Stories we used to use them thousands of years ago. That used to be our way of conveying history, of conveying messages, of conveying lessons. But again, in this digital age and technological age, everything's in front of you. Everything's being done for you. So you're kind of making yourself, you're dumbing down your brain. In a way, I think it was George Orwell who said that people will be subject. I'm paraphrasing him massively because I'm just plucking this from thin air. But he said that people will be subdued through gadgetry and technology. And he's right. He's absolutely right. People are more interested in what the latest celebrity is doing, or what the latest celebrity, what the celebrity is wearing fashionably, and all these things. And that's not news.
Taylor Swift splits from her manager.
Yeah,
That's like front page news. Whilst World War Three is on the brink of
Yeah,
starting.
yeah,
Yeah, do you know?
absolutely,
Yeah. While
absolutely.
Russia
And
meet,
then,
while
and then
Russia
we,
Russia meets with King John. Let's talk about that
yeah,
because that's quite
but
important.
we all
But no,
sit there. We all sit there
let's.
going, well, it's easy to think about what I don't know what Katie Price is doing
Mhm.
recently. To be honest, right?
It's distraction. That's what it
It's
is, really.
distraction. Yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
And because our brains aren't as alert as maybe they should be, due to the fact that people have got mortgages to worry about. There's this whole cost of living thing going on. There's always a crisis going on somewhere. There's some new variant of some dodgy virus going around the place. We live in a constant world of fear.
Mm.
Um,
So maybe the truth is too hard for us then.
there isn't the truth that is too hard. It is our accepting our responsibility in our part of the world that we've created. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
You know, um, responsibility is something that you don't see anymore. Everyone's quick to pass the buck. I mean, you've got this schools thing at the moment. You've got Labour going up, and in 2021 you cut it by 50%, and then you've got Mr. Sunak standing up going, but in 2020 I said this.
Mm.
The point is, I don't care what you've done in 2020 and 2021. What are you doing now? What are you doing to find out why this situation has occurred? You know, these things should not be happening. We're meant to be an advanced nation,
Mm.
you know, but really the country's falling apart. And
Well,
it,
it's literally falling apart, isn't it? The
yeah,
buildings are literally
yeah, yeah,
falling down
yeah.
right now, aren't they?
How very
Yeah, yeah.
apt. But yeah, and as a result, it's quick to pass the buck, so therefore there is no responsibility. So eventually we'll just move on to the next celebrity,
Mm.
you know, without actually discussing the real issues that really affect people. I'm not one for small talk, never been one for small talk, you know. I'll engage in it, you know. But if you really want to know how my dad's doing or how my brother's doing or what the dog's up to, yeah, then pop round, have a word. They'd be more than happy to see you and they'd probably appreciate the company,
Mhm.
you know, and a catch up. If you want to sit down and tell me your story, then I'm more than willing to listen.
Yeah.
I don't like to think that I judge. I don't think I judge people. I accept people as they are. Um, it's important.
I think sometimes you're quite an open person,
Yeah.
and sometimes that openness can come across as being too truthful and a bit harsh, can't it? Some
Yes.
people can't I'll go back to some people can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
you
can't
can't
handle
handle
the
the
truth.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Right.
that would be
Yeah.
for the trailer. That bit.
But yeah, no, it is. It is. It comes down to the truth and responsibility.
Mm.
My my dad's had this priest that's been staying with him recently. He
Where do you
comes
find him?
down the back of the sofa. It's weird what you find down there, man. Right? No, he comes over from Africa. My dad's a um, active member in the church, um, and unusually for a man of the cloth, he was actually quite open and receptive to things that normally I've been told to shut up about. I mean, I was christened Roman Catholic,
Mhm.
everything else, but my career as a Roman Catholic came to an abrupt end around about the age of 6, when whilst at a Catholic primary school, they put a book in front of me, and they started telling me about this wonderful man and how he was healing people, he was making things nice, and all this lot. And at the end, they asked if we had any questions, and that's pretty much where my life took a bit of a plummet. And I said, "Yeah, I've got a question. What's your question?" "Well, who wrote it? And how do you know they wrote it? And when did they write it? Why are you asking these questions?" "Well, because, you know, it's a lovely story and all, but I need some more I need some more convincing."
Mhm.
"Oh, but the book should be enough." "Well, no, it isn't." And that was at the age of 6. From that moment on, I spent a lot of time outside the headmaster's office. But it's all right, 'cause I became bell monitor due to the fact that that's what I shared a shelf with. Yeah.
So back at school is where your rebellious streak started. So what I want to find out now, Danny, because you said about you're open to find out about other people's stories and you quite like that.
Mm.
This is I want to know your story. Where did so this let's go back. Let's go
Okay.
all the way back to the beginning of this rebellious stage from school. So
Rebellious
I
stage.
want to add in here because we haven't like formally kind of introduced all the things that you do. We've said you do community,
Yeah.
but you're also an actor,
Yes.
and you've had a career as an
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah. Well,
Actu
in so much as I've earned a
in
bit of cash on
a bit of cash here
it.
and there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's like any actor, up and highs and lows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but before we get into the highs and lows of the acting career, like where did this story start for Danny?
Okay. As a child, I was always being told to stop showing off, and I did. I did. I subdued myself.
You did what
Um,
you was told.
I did what I was told.
Okay,
Well,
that's interesting.
some of the time, some of the time, I was a kid, and yeah, and it was the 70s. We were all doing it. Um, yeah. I think I suddenly got mesmerized by this false existence that we call acting. Um, when I was about 10 years old, my dad used to work at a club just down the road called, it was the BP Social Club. My dad used to work as a doorman there. My mum used to work there as a cleaner. And so I'd go down there on a Saturday afternoon and spend some time there because really weren't that much to do anyway. Um, and then there was this group of people that were in their sports hall that had a little stage at the back, and they used to do like events and stuff there. And they were singing songs. And I heard the songs, and I went in and I was listening to the songs, and I sat down, and these people were wearing strange clothing. This sort of clothing you only see on the telly.
Mm.
Oh, what is this they're doing? And I watched them, and I was just transfixed for a good 2-3 hours. And yeah, started talking. I've never had a problem with talking to people. Don't know where that's come from. Anyway, so yeah, I just started talking and imposing myself upon them. And they said, "Oh yeah, we meet up here at Little Pond and Church Hall on a Friday evening. If you're interested, come down." I was 10 years old. So I asked my dad, uh, and he organised a lift because he was working on that night for me to go down there. And this group was called the Harlequins, and they used to show songs from the musicals, old time music hall, that sort of thing. And yeah, went along there and realised that this was just one big play space, where I didn't have to worry about me because there I was. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I'm getting really
You,
esoteric and stuff, aren't
you
I?
was you was in a place where you felt comfortable to be you.
Yeah, to be me.
Mm.
Um,
Because that doesn't happen for many at school, does it?
no, no, and
Because school is a place you have to go.
yeah,
You never sign up to it.
and I never really got on with people at school. I
Mm.
wouldn't say that
Again, because
like
you're
I was
thrown
hated.
you're thrown together by postcode,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially, aren't
absolutely,
you?
and selection process
Mm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but I've always got on with whoever I'm put together with. There's no point in being nasty and bitchy and horrible to people that you got to live with,
Mhm.
essentially, or work with, or whatever. Although there are some people that you work with that you do really want to just wring their neck. Um, yeah, so yeah, I've lost my train of thought on that one.
Yeah, so this is where you joining the
Yeah,
group.
yeah. So I stuck with them for a couple of years. Did some old time music hall, a few songs from the shows.
What was this group called?
The Harlequins.
The Harlequin. Nice.
I just
Do they
remember.
still exist?
No,
No, long
no,
gone.
no. It was run by Jim and Carol. Uh, yeah, that's who run it. That's who got me into it, and they encouraged me in a way because I was actually a little bit wary of everything. You know, growing up in a town like Harlow, you learn to be wary. I'm not saying it's a bad place because as much as people slag it off, it isn't a bad place.
Mm.
You know, anywhere's the same as what you make of it, I suppose. I'm certainly learning that now. Um, but from the Harlequins, I went and lived in France for a while. My dad's cousins came over and said, "Oh, on the way back," because they finish school earlier than we do for their summer holidays. Excuse
Mm.
me. And yeah, so they said they're going on a tour of Ireland. On the way back, do I want to go over to Biarritz with them? It's like, yeah, all right then, why not? Um, and they picked me up, and I went over there. And then after about 4 or 5 weeks, they said, "Look, we know you're going home soon, but we were wondering, do you want to stay over here and go to school over here and just learn the language?" And it's like, yeah, all right then, why not? You know, I was 12,
Mhm.
and I thought, yeah, go for it. It's an adventure. It's something new. It's something different.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot about myself when I was out there. Um, I learned a lot about people, strangely enough. For the first few months that I was out there, I was punched, I was kicked, I was spat on because I was English.
Mhm.
Um, and
Sounds quite a traumatizing time.
yeah, it was.
Mm.
It was.
But are you saying that built you?
Yes, very much so. Because rather than hating them for it, which is a normal reaction for humans, um, I don't know, I try to understand why. There always has to be a reason for something. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction,
Mhm.
you know? Um, it's whether or not we're prepared to question it enough to find out that reason. I put it down to history. Yeah, us and the French, we've never been the best of buddies.
Mm.
But yeah, uh, but that taught me strength. I I found a strength to be able to survive. And I suppose that's when I sort of decided that didn't matter how bad it got or how many times I was knocked down, I would just get up again, brush myself off, start again. There's no fear in starting again.
Mm.
It's a horrible prospect, especially in the world of acting. I mean, Christ,
It's continuous, isn't it?
COVID killed the industry,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to freelancing work and stuff. Um, and yeah, once that's gone and your savings are gone, then what are you left with? You need money to be able to advance, to get the right stuff together, to be able to improve your position within your career. Um,
Weren't we supposed to retrain in cyber?
yes, we're all meant to become computer
Yes,
technicians, but
that's
unfortunately, my generation didn't really do maths. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing you got computers for these days is to play games,
Mm.
apparently. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me some French. It gave me an experience that not a lot of people would get. Um, when I came back from France, I was in an English lesson. A chap called Kevin Cookson, my English teacher, said, "Oh, by the way, at the end of a lesson, there's a local theatre company, by the youth theatre company called Stage Directions. They're looking for people to be fairies in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream."
So of course you
I was
raised.
hand was straight up, mate.
I'm
You know
there.
what I mean? I'm a fairy, ha ha ha. You know, and at the age of 13, 14, that got a ripple of laughter.
Mhm.
Um,
The stage on this town, through knowing the theatre community quite well, I hear the name stage direction a lot.
mm,
It affected it brought up a whole
a
generation,
vast
didn't it?
number of people,
Mm.
vast number of people. Um, it was at a time in the town when there was many theatre companies. You had
Oh, really?
Moot House Players, you had Harlow Opera Company, Harlow Theatre Company, Harlow Youth Theatre. So there was a lot of theatre groups around the town. It's one of the reasons why the Playhouse was built, was so that amateur groups would have a performance space. Um, but for whatever reason, it's not always worked out that way.
Mhm.
Um, but stage directions was the one for me. It was just down the road. I was going to be a fairy. um, and then turned up to this place. Never got to be a fairy. Had to be a courtier. Um, and just stood at the back, i- just reacting, because that's what acting is. It's just
Mhm.
reacting. Um, then we went on tour to Germany with it. Done a short tour of Germany with it.
Mhm.
Again, another truly amazing experience. But it's them experiences that bonded everyone. You know, we had a shared experience. We became strong as a company. Uh,
And how old was you at this time?
I was 13 going on 14.
Okay, so you're
Uh,
still at school whilst you did this tour.
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
did that kind of work?
Uh, well, yeah, it worked.
It just
That's it. That's all I'm saying. You know who you are. No, it worked. It was brilliant. It was a great experience.
Mhm.
And again, it created friendships and ties amongst people that weren't just local, but were international. You know, and you felt that you were finding out about the world and not just the town that you lived in or the area that you lived in. It gave you the opportunity to realise that there's definitely a lot more out there, you know. And that's what it was doing for me. It was opening up my eyes. It was showing me different things. It was teaching me different things. But most importantly, it was the only space that I had where I could feel like I was myself. Because, excuse me, living and being brought up in Harlow, as I say, it's not a bad town, but you have to learn, or I've had to learn, to be a chameleon. In so much as you get into one particular place and you blend in, you know. And I don't necessarily like blending in.
Mhm.
You know, one of the worst experiences for me is being on a tube train. Right, hate being on a tube train because it is the most antisocial part of any form of travel ever invented. You know, nobody talks to each other. We hide behind newspapers and now gadgetry and phones and what have you, but nobody ever talks. When I was 14, 15, well, I used to tell my mum I was going up to town, but we'd disappear up to London. And yeah, I'd end up in the tube carriage getting everyone to do a sing along or
Yeah.
asking questions and getting people to talk to each other that normally they wouldn't even make eye contact with
Yeah.
because that's some sort of like
I
sin.
haven't really ever sort of considered it really. Yeah, you're right. When you sit on the train, everyone just puts their head down,
Yeah.
don't they? And they keep themselves very, very much to
But
themselves. But how enlightening could it be to turn around to the next person sitting next to you and go, "Good morning,"
yeah, exactly.
like you,
Exactly.
where
And
that could lead as well.
yeah, because
You know.
to some people, just that one
Hmm.
good morning, yeah, that can change their whole perspective, their whole
Yeah.
outlook on that day.
Mm.
Um,
There are a lot of lonely people out there,
oh, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
especially those that go towards London. It
Yeah.
seems to be this city, the biggest city in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's
But
everyone's
again,
lonely.
it's the climate of the society that we live in,
Mm.
where it's almost frowned upon to make contact.
Mm.
That's why social media is taking such a hold on people because it breaks down that barrier,
Yes. Yeah.
you know. Or no, it doesn't break down the barrier; it builds the barrier. That means you've got something to hide behind. I mean, the actor always talks about the fourth wall. Screw the fourth wall. You know, these people have paid to come and see you. If they want to interact with them. Yeah, make them part of what you're doing. You know, because that's more important than anything. Because as an actor, you've got an amazing skill that you can look into something and or someone and you can see that they're having one of the worst times of their life. There's lots of problems that are going on, financial, family, you know, career, everything else. They've got all these problems. But when they come to see you and you just make them chuckle just for that split second, you've exercised your power of making them forget every single problem that they've ever had. And that doesn't just last in that one auditorium for that one play, but that will
It
take
ripples.
that moves on.
Mm.
So like later on in the week, they'll suddenly think, "Oh, I'm back here again. Oh, hang on, there was that." And that changes. It's just the little tiny things
Mm.
that make the difference. And that's what I like about the power of an actor.
Mm.
Totally off topic, but
No, it's all part.
you know,
It's all part of it, you know.
um, and to be able to have that skill, to be able to create that small amount of healing for someone, because that's what it is. You're creating a healing space for them, where they can escape, where they can think about something different. You know, if you've got that power, then you should use it.
Tell
Everyone should use it.
tell me more about why that's important.
'Cause just look at the world around you. There's too much misery going on, too much blame, too much disaster, too much famine, too much everything, and people seem to be plodding on as though we've reached some level of contentment with it. We can actually live with it now, and that shouldn't be. We didn't come out of the trees and evolve over millions of years to suddenly go, yeah, well, I'll do it tomorrow. And I am. Don't get me wrong. I am one of the most. I am one of the biggest procrastinators, right, that's ever walked this planet. If I can put it off till tomorrow, yeah, I will. Right, right.
Yeah.
As my partner knows all too well, and she does give me a good kick up the arse every so often, much needed.
You probably deserve it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, because of the amount of misery, to be able to just take that person away for a little while, it's amazing. I mean, as much as I appreciate audiobooks and I see the good that they do in getting people in touch with literature, etc., there's still nothing more satisfying than opening a book and getting lost within the words that are written on the pages of that book. Because there is no greater conjurer of imagery. There's no greater processor of literature or written or spoken word than the human brain. And if we stop that firing,
Mm.
then we might as well all just stand still and wait for whatever to happen to happen.
And in a way, that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve here.
Mm.
That 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 firing of that brain, that kind of
Yeah,
driving that conversation, driving the
yeah.
messages that you're
But
kind of talking about.
you've also got into a situation now. I mean, there's all these labels going around. You're woke, you're whatever, right? I couldn't give a monkeys about that. Are you a decent human being? Right? What does it mean to be human? Well, to get on with people, to understand people. I mean, there's a bloke who said it 2,000 years ago, and they nailed him to a tree, right? And then all this other thing grew up around it. But the simplicity of it all is to stop hating, take some time out to slow down. It's a fast-paced world out there,
Mhm.
and we can't keep up. We can't. We're not. We haven't evolved sufficiently to be able to keep up with the pace of advancements that are going on.
Mm.
We need to slow down, and
How do you propose we do that?
by hmm, stop worrying about the more material side of life. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. So why? Why worry? I understand that there's a necessity for materialism, but if it means that you've got to tread over lots of people to get to it, is it really worth it? If you have to upset someone to get to somewhere that you want to go, is that really worth it? Is that worth the price?
Mm.
My mum used to say, God doesn't pay his debts in money, right? And yeah, although she's coming from the Christian perspective, I kind of understand what the meaning of that is. You
Which
know,
is?
But if you've got to turn your back on someone to get a job, or if you've got to hurt someone to get to a particular place in the standings or in the queue or whatever, then that's not a price worth paying. If it's monetary, you can throw money at it as long as you like. Yeah. But if you're actually hurting people, if you're actually being negative, um, putting people down, blaming people for the mistakes that you make, then you're not truly expressing your human side. You're expressing your conditioned side, your survival instinct. We all live on our survival instinct today.
Hmm.
And it's all about reactions and knee-jerk actions. There's no long-term planning. There's no future planning. But that doesn't mean there isn't a future. It just means that there's something in the way that's stopping everyone from actually having the balls to actually turn around and go, no, I think it's wrong. It should be like this. And then there's also the restraints that are put on you, mortgage, needing to feed yourself, pay for fuel, etc., etc. But that's not the be all and end all of life. For me personally, it's to make as many people happy as possible. Because there's one thing for certain: there's a lot of people you're going to make unhappy, whether you intend to or not. If you can make amends and not forget, then you're learning lessons. And learning lessons is all important.
Yeah, and what you like to do.
Yeah, I like the
You know.
variety. I like things that are different, which again is a problem
Why is it a
as
problem?
well. One of my main causes of procrastination is I have many, many ideas, but I get very bored very quickly. So I'll start doing something and then something else will catch my eye. I've got friends that say I'm a typical Gemini. But yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if the star signs are a way of breaking down the neurological discussion that we're having at the moment, a lot with ADHD,
Yeah.
isn't it? So in the past, they'd have said, "Oh, you're this star sign, or you're a balanced person, you're an erratic person."
Yeah, it's a way that we used to put an understanding on human
On the
psyche, I
different,
suppose, and the human condition,
and try and break it down into 12 characters.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, it's a lot more
and
complex.
and also at the time, everyone sort of believed that everything was influenced from the sky. The stars had this, the movements of the planets did that.
Yeah.
Right. We've got a better understanding of things now. I'm not saying that isn't true. I've got no way of proving whether it is or not.
And I would say there potentially is an influence there.
For
instance,
everything influences something.
Yeah, for instance, the moon. When we
Yeah.
have a full moon, there are more. They have to put more police.
Yes,
because
yeah.
crime goes
People
up.
go a bit
Crime goes
crazy.
up by about 30% on a
Yeah.
full moon. So the environment in which we live does have an effect on us.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Whether that's down here or whether that's from up there,
Yeah,
it definitely has an effect.
yeah. Everything has an effect on everything. Again, that's where we've broken our programming as humans,
Yeah.
because we're just seeing the effect it has on us without looking at the bigger picture. But to understand the bigger picture, you've got to be able to break it down into lots of smaller pictures. Otherwise, it just becomes overwhelming and people break down.
Yeah.
Because mental health is also a massive thing at the moment.
Of course, yeah.
It's the unspoken pandemic, in my opinion.
You think it's unspoken still?
By those that can do things about it, yeah, very much so. Those that have been there, those that have experienced it, whether as someone that's got mental health issues or as someone who is associated with someone or knows someone with mental health issues. There's not enough talk about it. People understand it. People know that something needs to be done, but those that can do it, they won't put the money into it. They won't put the funding into it. COVID, fine. We can create a serum. We can inject you in the arm. Mental health, there's no antidote for that, mate. The biggest thing at the moment, and this is my bugbear, because I've been on the mental health merry-go-round, as I like to call it, where you turn up to a doctor then turns around and says, "Oh, I can prescribe you this pill," but then you turn around and say, "Yeah, I don't actually want to do pills. I want to actually deal with my problem rather than mask it." Then in that case, we can't really help you. So you want to stick drugs down my neck,
Mhm.
yeah, and balance me out chemically rather than actually dealing with the issue
So
or issues that are
S-
causing the.
So you say there's no cure. I would like to think, and I'm completely unqualified.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
so I'm talking
Me too.
complete rubbish. But I would like to think, and from what I've seen and what I've experienced myself, that for me, the cure is people.
Yes.
For me, it's about not being alone.
Hmm.
It's about connections.
Mm.
And it's about being active with other people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, I would say, if not a cure, it's definitely a supportive mechanism.
Mm.
It's something that will raise you, if you're feeling down. It will definitely raise you back up.
Yeah.
And for me, quite few years ago, same thing. Went to the doctor. Here's some pills. Take these. Didn't want to take the pills.
Mm.
I did take the pills. They didn't work for me at all.
No, and I'm not saying, right, that people with mental health issues
Sh
shouldn't do the
No,
medication,
that's exactly, yeah.
right? Because that's wrong.
But you should also seek other
Yeah,
things as well.
absolutely.
And so for me, it was going back to something I love. So at that time, I'd stopped doing something I love, which
Mm.
was theatre,
Yeah.
and I started doing a proper job because
Yeah.
I felt that that's what I needed to do at the time.
Mhm.
I felt that that was the responsible thing as a new parent
Mm.
to do a job, which it is
Mm.
responsible to do, and you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
have to provide for your children, I think.
yeah.
Um, but it was making me depressed, and I didn't put in there any time for me.
And that is the problem.
Yeah, I
That
didn't
is
put
the
in there
problem.
for finding the thing that I
Mm.
love, and I didn't realise. I thought it was just theatre
Mm.
that is what I loved, but it wasn't. It was being around the people. It was
Theatre is
connecting.
therapy.
Yeah, it was connecting with people, and it
Theatre is
was.
therapy. I found that. I found that
Mm,
theatre is definitely therapy. As I said, at first it was a place where, or it's an environment in which I felt comfortable. Yeah, where didn't feel like I was being judged for who I was. And I was a dodgy little bastard when I was a kid, right? To be fair. Um, yeah. So I didn't feel judged or anything like that. And that's why I enjoyed it. But as I've got older, I won't say mature, um, as I've got older, I've realised that it is living therapy.
mm.
That's what it is for me. It's a chance of stepping out of myself.
And did you always recognise that?
No,
No, you don't, do you?
no,
Until you.
no,
I
I
think
never
I
realised
think you
that.
realise it once you've lived it for a while and you come away
Yeah,
from it.
yeah. Well, it also depends. I know a few people that have got on well in the acting world, and quite frankly, disappeared up their own arse a little bit. Um, and by that I mean that they don't seem to acknowledge where they've been anymore because they've got to where they wanted to go.
Mm,
And I don't
interesting.
think that's right. I think that you should always remember where you've been.
And how would you propose one does that? Because I've seen people as well take tremendous leaps in their career, and often these people are always looking forward,
Mm.
and there is this thing about not looking back, about
I'm not saying looking back is something you shouldn't do. What I think is you know your past, you know your story better than anyone else,
Mhm.
right? Um, you can either live there, you can live in your past and let it slowly make you bitter, twisted, resentful, or you can accept your past. Yeah, you were a little bastard when you were a kid, but that little bastard in you has actually got you this particular role. See that's me. I never went to drama school.
Mhm.
I tried for drama school, but I just
Yeah,
wasn't.
take me back to. We've come away from your
Yeah.
journey a bit.
Ugh.
Take me back to your journey. So you were involved with community
Yeah.
theatre as a
Stage
child,
direction.
but you didn't go after school. Right? Okay, I'm going to study theatre.
No,
Yeah, I'm going
no,
to study acting. You didn't choose to study.
no. Done
What did you choose to do?
Uh, to be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't have a clue. Luckily, I screwed up my GCSEs at first time round, so I had a year where I could do resits and really give a deep
Mhm.
think thought. I can't even speak now about the whole thing. Um, and then I thought, well, the only careers advice that I was given was at school. The careers teacher came in, sat me down in an office, and he said, "Right, I'm your careers teacher. Now tell me, what is it you would like to do in the future?" At the time, I wanted to be a pilot, and they went, "Oh, that's really nice. Have you considered working in some of the local factories?" And it's like, didn't you just hear what I said? You know, and again, that's not where you're meant to be. People like you aren't meant to be there. And it's like, well, I won't go there then.
Mhm.
And I won't do what you're telling me to do. And I wasn't really good at anything else, but I had this, I was given a face that contorts to many weird shapes and things that people have told me about. And I'm an expressive person. And I suppose I got the front to actually stand up and make an ass of myself without worrying about whether somebody's going to judge me for it or anything like that, you know? Um, so acting seemed like the natural course, but I didn't know what I was doing. None of my family were in acting,
Mm.
you know? I could cry. When I turned around to my mum, right, and I said, "Mum, I want to be an actor," she looked at me and went, "You need to get a proper job,"
Of
right?
course, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. But I didn't get a proper. Well, I tried to get a proper job, and I couldn't do it. I worked in offices. I've worked in shops. I I've worked delivery. I've worked telesales. I've done pretty much everything, and I just did not enjoy any single part of it. There was nothing in it that was
Mm.
fulfilling. Um, so yeah, I was going to be an actor. I get a kick out of making people laugh. You know. Um,
So specifically, like in the direction of comedy, that was always a thing.
I again, because I had no real direction, I just threw myself at anything. You know, Shakespeare, comedy, as you say, bit of Pinter, bit of Brecht, you know. Um, I just threw myself at anything. Musicals. That was one of the things that the break for me from stage directions was when I joined Harlow Opera Company, or I went to an audition for Harlow Opera Company. They were doing auditions for half a sixpence, and I went along to that. And to be honest, I didn't think I'd get anywhere outside of stage directions. And then I got a phone call, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'd like to give you the part of Sid Warnick." And it's like, really? Ooh. And yeah, people were saying good things about me. So, but again, I had that teenage mentality. You know,
And
you start,
what was that teenage
well,
mentality then?
you start believing your own bullshit.
Okay.
You know, um,
So what were you telling yourself?
that that it was a piece of piss. Everything was easy. All I had to do was go there and do this, and everything will fall in place.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's not the case, right? But also at the time,
Why do you think you believe that so strongly? Because I've been there as well. At
mm,
that young age, you kind of think, you try hard in this, you do this, you do that, and it will
well,
go.
for me, it was creating a bravado that created a shield that actually kept people away.
Tell me, the shield.
Actors, the shield.
What's the shield?
There's the persona that you give to people that you willingly give, that you choose to give, and then there's the persona that at times only family see,
Hmm.
close friends see, and that's not always the nice part of you. You know, um, they're the ones that help you through the dark moments. They're the people that are there for you, that are meant to help you, that are meant to care for you. You know, but at the same time, you feel sort of as though you're putting yourself upon people by doing that. You know, so when it comes, it's like the small talk of personality. You know, you've got one way that you act in front of certain people, but then there's this particular part of you that you keep to yourself.
Mhm.
And if anyone ever gets close to that, you need your shields, you need your deflectors. And one of them was building up this bravado, this image this idea in your head that you were the next like Don, you know, you were
Yeah.
to use modern parlance, you were goat, right? Sorry, right? Yeah, and then life kicks you up the arse and brings you down a peg or two.
And I think it's quite easy to fall into that trap of a high, of feeling like
Mm.
you've got so everyone's got potential.
But I also fell into the
And
pitfalls and perils of believing such things.
mm,
Um, Became an amateur chemist at a young age,
yeah,
you know,
officially or unofficially?
illegally, unofficially.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at in a
Yeah, yeah,
polite
yeah,
way.
yeah. Yeah, started smoking weed.
Mm,
Um, did some acid. Acid was a complete game changer for me. Right, a lot of people have said, "Ooh, that's nasty. It messes your head up." No, no, not for me. It didn't. It made me discover myself, on a deeper level than I probably would have if I was carrying on the way that I was going. And once I'd done it and I've learned lessons from that, I've never gone back. Never gone back.
transcendental type of experiences then did you have on that?
Yeah, yeah. Transcendental, existential.
Hmm.
Um,
How long ago was this?
God, wow. I was a psychonaut from roughly the age of 16
Okay.
into my early 20s. And this wasn't like every day wake up, drop an acid, and then off you go with your day, because like that never works.
Mm.
If you're going to poison yourself, at least give yourself a bit of time to recover, right? Whatever the substance. But yeah, rather than going out, doing whatever, going to a club, sweating your night away and hoping you survive, I used to go out to the woods, build a fire, you know, sit around the fire. The people that joined you were usually the same as you and were doing the same things as you. And you just got on, you learnt about people. You found out stories, you started making up stories, you started using imagination. Songs were written, scenarios were written, comedy sketches were written. And it all worked out from this collective. And each time you're in a state of consciousness that is so heightened that it's really hard to explain, and I'm really going off on one here. But they talk about it being a trip, but it doesn't take you anywhere. It helps you be more retrospective, introspective, so you can work out who you are, what
Hmm.
you are, and what it is. And it can never be fully explained, but
Yeah, so would you say that these trips, would you say they are would you say you have been somewhere, or would you say that it was a, because I'm trying to figure this out for myself. Is
mm,
it the right, because there's a lot going on with this right now in
mhm,
the science world. It's become more open
yeah,
recently, hasn't it?
yeah.
And is this a journey to somewhere else, to another plane of existence, to the third and fourth
No,
dimension, or is this your brain rewiring
it
and
is.
reconnecting?
It is your brain rewiring, reconnecting, and reaching a level of consciousness that has been kept from us through various systems of government, religion, whatever, you know. So everything's
Would you say that's partly through protection? Because there is obviously a danger with these things.
depends on who you're protecting.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Because my experience of it isn't as big as your experience.
fucking hell, man.
But when I mean what I mean, I'm not as qualified as you are to talk of these
Thank
things.
you very much.
um, but with me, mine was an accident of what I
Uh-huh.
took to have this journey, um, and it was very beneficial to me.
Mm.
But it could have gone very, very wrong
Oh
had
yeah,
I
and
not found
it
the
does
right
go
person
wrong.
to care for me.
It does go wrong for a
Mm,
lot of people.
yeah,
Um,
I could have gone into a place of suicidalness. Is
yeah,
that a
but
word, suicidalness?
yeah,
Suicide. That I would
yeah.
at one
Suicidal tendencies.
suicidal tendencies. I went to
Yeah.
a very, very dark place in the
Mm.
beginning.
Because that's the thing.
And so, yeah, as society,
Acid.
are we protecting? Has it been for a long time? We must just protect against it because of that potential dark place that you could go to.
Right. When it comes to psychedelics and things like that, I think you have to be in the right frame of mind to do so.
Mhm.
I believe that there's drug use and there's drug abuse. Yeah. Drug use is like for me, when I took the acid, it was just sitting down. It was finding out about me, the world around me, what I was. And honestly, we are all so small in the grand scheme of things, right?
Mm.
It's incomprehensible. Um, but uh, we we don't want to face our demons. We find it difficult to face our demons. What acid does, if you're in the right frame of mind, and it 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 doesn't give you the choice. You know, it creates a safe space for you to look at those demons, not tackle them, not deal with them, but to recognize them. And once you've done that, move on. Don't do it again. You don't need to. You've learned what you need
Mhm.
to learn. But unfortunately, some people do it because they're getting higher, because they're
Yeah, so
getting
that's
off
the
their head,
problem.
and
The addiction. So
mm,
that from my trip that I had, there was definitely a feeling of I want to go back. I want to go back.
yeah.
I want
Well,
to.
there's more questions
There's more.
afterwards,
Yeah, yeah. I asked a lot of
but that's
questions that
because you've
night.
opened your mind to a different
That's right.
level of perception of
But
consciousness.
in saying that I want to go back, I'm not saying that in a way that I feel addicted. I feel that that's only going to happen for me in a safe environment, a safe
Yeah.
space, at a time that I choose.
Mm.
Um,
Well,
but some people will go. Some people won't be able to handle that. Some people will go. I want to do that again next weekend, and the next weekend,
mm.
and the next weekend, and then we get to that place of drug abuse.
But that's the problem. Due to the limited amount of research that has been done into narcotic drugs, uh, we don't fully understand the implications of them or the benefits of
Mhm.
them.
And it's been
Most,
closed off for a long time, hasn't
yeah,
it? In
yeah,
the I think
absolutely,
it was the 70s that they just prohibited
yeah, everything.
scientific
60s, 69, I
exploration.
think it was
Yeah,
68 or 69.
they just went, okay,
But
scientists, you can't look at this anymore.
but the whole narcotics list was
Hmm.
drawn up in the 1920s with the League of Nations, and opiates, cocaine, and things like that were all on this list to be outlawed and banned. Cocaine, incidentally, was actually created as an antidote to heroin. That worked out. Um, and yeah, thing marijuana was only added to the list at the last minute because the United States of America said it sent people crazy.
Mm.
What they meant by that was there's too many people asking questions, and they're the wrong sort of people. At the time, 1920s,
Hmm.
reefer was being smoked by the black man. Yeah, that wasn't allowed because black men are starting to think. They're starting to think about civil rights and stuff like that. And that's what it does. It calms you in this fast-paced world. Marijuana slows you down to a point where you suddenly go, "Oh
Yeah, and
yeah,"
you start to go, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And that,
And all those worries of the outside world, or all them things that are inconsequential,
mm,
you put them to one side.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you start realizing things about yourself and the world around you,
Hmm.
which is something that I don't know. I'm really skeptical and Orwellian when it comes to this, but that's something that is not beneficial to the powers that be.
Yeah.
Which is why we rob our children of an imagination. Because
Hmm.
if we do it at an early age, then they won't be thinking when
No,
it comes to it.
then they can grow up as consumers
Yeah, and you can
and
also see
factory
that
workers and.
in electoral turnouts and stuff
Hmm.
like that. It, it's been so low for so long, and it's so sad, because we've got the politicians we deserve because nobody's doing anything about it, and those that do try to do something about it,
Hmm.
everyone's going, "Oh yeah, but it's inconvenience in my day. How am I meant to get to work?" We won't think about, "Oh, well, what happens if I get thrown under that train or I fall under that train and there's no one there to pull me out?" We don't think about that. We just look at, "Yeah, but I've got to get to work. I've got to pay the mortgage. I've got to feed the kids. I've got to
Hmm.
pay the electricity." And that's what we're more interested in. And it's got to such a point where traditional systems of protest have broken down so much that people are taking such extreme measures and stupid measures, such as gluing yourself to a motorway,
Yeah.
you know?
Just pissing everyone
And
off.
it does,
Yeah.
it really pisses people off.
Mm.
But you've got to ask yourself, well, if people are feel that they need to do that, what is wrong with the system that makes them feel like they need to do that?
Yeah.
And we're
Well,
just
it's
being shut
simple. The
down all the
ones
time.
that are in charge aren't connecting, aren't listening,
No,
and
absolutely.
they're not part of the
And
collective.
and not just
They're
that, it's
outside.
because they've put systems and ways in place that prevent you from your rightful legal right to protest. If you think that something is wrong,
Mhm.
then it's wrong. Where in the 90s we had all the direct action stuff, with Swampy and people just being more direct, more violent, more aggressive. Um, and it's something that was left over from the way that the miners were treated. It is still my opinion, by the way. There's absolutely no grounds of expertise in this.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to just take that bit out and put that at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah,
Warning, here's Danny Gleeson. He knows nothing.
here is a podcast from the uninformed and misguided. Yeah.
And of course myself. I'm including myself in
Yeah.
that.
But when the miners were finally defeated, it was a dark day because strike became a dirty word. I mean, it had already been destroyed in the 70s with the militancy of the unions and stuff. But in the 80s, it was finally destroyed. And it was almost a dirty word within the workplace. And anyway, we're looking forward to a new Tory Britain with prosperity and everything else. And the 80s gave us that, put us in a lot of debt, but at least we had the money, and we sold everything. And then people started waking up to that, started realizing that like this boom and bust economy thing, that's not working. This whole let's all buy our houses. Well, you didn't use that money to invest in new housing, so my kids can't live the way that we expected them to. You haven't fulfilled your promise.
Mm.
People started protesting against that. They didn't like that. They shut us down. Then you had the introduction of poll tax. People were never going to like that. That was never going to happen. And that created a more direct confrontation. Because, in my opinion, the police were only ever trained to deal with violent situations. They're not trained to deal with a peaceful situation. They're not. They're meant to be in there arresting people, breaking things up. They're all violent action. If someone sat down in the middle of the road, all right, they're causing a disturbance, whatever, you've got every right to arrest them, but you don't drag them off the street. That's not right. You're taking away their right to protest, make that protest, and to be heard making that protest. And then you had as a result of the poll tax marches, also dubbed as riot, you got the anti-criminal justice bill. Oh no, you got the criminal justice bill come through, and that limited people's right to spontaneous protest. Now, when you make a protest in London, you've got to have the names and addresses of all the organisers of the protest. You've got to give a direct route on maps and everything else of how that protest is going and where it's going to end up, etc., etc. Well, if you're corralling people to a certain place and saying where they can and cannot go, you're taking away their spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
So you've shut them down. Again, it's a small thing, but all the small things create a big thing.
And that's why I wonder what we're moving towards as a society. Where are we going with all of this control and all of this?
It's a fear society. Control creates fear.
Mm-hmm.
We need fear. We live in a world that has to have someone scared of something, whether that be terrorism, whether that be a virus, whether that be the stock exchange, the price of your house, your job. We've got to be scared of something, because if we're scared of something, we're not thinking about the things that matter. We're not thinking about the root causes of why am I worried about that job? Why is my health service a mess? What? I'm getting political now.
When have you not been?
Yeah, fair point. I said I wouldn't.
So why have you not got into politics?
Because I couldn't be that dishonest. You see, for me,
What do you think every politician is?
no, I don't. What I disagree with is the idea of professional politicians. To be a politician, or if you stand as a politician, then surely you stand because you've noticed that there's something wrong and you want to make a difference. You have a possible solution that you want heard. And that's great. That's lovely. Honest intentions. But once you get into the political system, you have to belong to a party. If you don't belong to a party, you stand independent. There's no chance of you getting elected. So you've got to join the party. So when it comes to election time, you have to toe the party line. You have to do what the party says. But what if I don't agree with it? And you're out the party. Suddenly that's a compromise on why I stood to be a politician. Well, you should have gone to university and studied it. Yeah, but what has that actually given you in life experience? That's why we're so disconnected. Yeah. Rishi Sunak probably wouldn't be able to tell you what the price of a loaf of bread or pint of milk was, right? But he can walk around all day in £950 loafers. If that's not telling you what's disconnected, then, But why is he in the position that he is? Because he studied politics and business. But it's a vocation. It's not a career. You do it because you want to make change. You want to affect change.
So you could stand as an independent.
You could, but you wouldn't have the money. The importance of having the party backing is that you've got the party budget to be able to use. You're standing as an independent, you've only got your own money and your weekly wage, and you've got to pay your electricity and your mortgage. See, it stops people from doing that. Got to pay, I think it's a £500 deposit to stand for a local election. And then you've got to. It used to be, I think, 10% or 9% of the vote of the overall poll. If you didn't get more than 9 or 10%, then you'd lose that £500. Well, if that's Labour, that's £500 nothing to them. It's Conservative, £500 nothing to them. But if it's someone like me, just goes, excuse me, and they're the channels that we're meant to use, then again, we've all been shut down. Our voice has been silenced. That's why theatre is so important in this day and age, because it should provoke. I was saying earlier that we've got all these labels about woke people and stuff like that, right? Couldn't give a monkeys about the label. Only nasty people set out to offend other people, right? Ignorant people, uneducated people, they wind me up, right? Don't ever set out to offend someone. If you do offend someone, right, then accept that you've caused offence, apologise for said offence, but also question why it has offended. Because once you've questioned why it has offended, you're opening up a dialogue to create compromise. Compromise being the true art of politics. Not opposed, one side opposed, you're either left, you're right, you're blue, you're red. It's creating that compromise. And the only way that we're going to create that compromise is to really understand why it is I've offended you, or why it is you've offended me. And we shy away from doing that. We suddenly start going, oh, but you're being this, you're being that. No, I'm not. I just want to know. So again, it's another limit that's built up in society that prevents you from asking why, stops you from asking the important questions, the questions that matter, and the questions that can make a difference.
And often that question is simply why.
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Why is this way?
Yeah.
And so how can we do that? You mentioned in there about theatre and theatre being important. How is and you've pursued this through your life, theatre. How is that important for getting messages across?
Massively, because you take people out of constraints of the norm and put them into a space where they need to suspend reality.
I would like to think it encourages empathy.
As well. as well. But
Mm.
again, the only reason why that is because you're suspending their reality and putting them in a different reality. So therefore, it's easier for them to leave their baggage behind and just disappear.
Mhm.
Theatre's always been about escapism. Yeah, and that's what it's about. And through that way, you can get your message across. I mean, the best way to get any message across is through laughter. Because once you've got someone laughing, there is no defences up.
Mm.
It's one of the purest sounds that we can make as humans that is peaceful, is calm, is happy, is joyful.
And going back to politics, there is no room for that in politics at all, is there?
No, it's all business. It's all about
Mm.
going back to schools. It's all about
No.
league tables. It's all about the economy. And it's all about maintaining the mighty pound or the mighty dollar. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, when did we become commodities to buy and sell as and when our governments screw it up?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, they were talking, they said in 2008, we must bail out the banks. Now the schools are falling down. They're going, no, we're not giving any more money.
Mm.
Hang on, why not? Well, because we just start educating the plebs and we can't have that now, can we? You know, you might start getting ideas above your station.
Yeah.
But theatre is, it's important to get those messages across because it is the only real way that difference can be made. I mean, a lot of people are influenced through television. I mean, my generation was heavily influenced by television.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of us ended up doing drugs because most of the kids' programs we watched were because people
Living
done drugs,
Yeah.
right?
Magic roundabout.
Oh,
Need I say no more?
Jamie and the Magic Torch.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr.
Anyway,
Ben.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bagpuss was a stoner, right? Anyway,
Like the list is literally endless,
you
isn't
know,
it?
I mean, Rainbow. Who wakes up in the
Yeah.
morning and sees a pink hippopotamus, old pair of like
Yeah.
khaki Levi's and a 7-foot bear talking to you? Neighbours come round, do a quick song and dance with loads of crap from the cupboard, and then disappear again. You know. Yeah. So through creating that suspension of reality, you can share ideas. It creates. I've always said that there's an important phrase that we forget as adults, and I forgot it for a while. And it's something that we use all the time as kids, right? You see kids. It's important that kids play rather than sit there pressing buttons and staring at a screen. It's important that kids play because that's how they work through problems, physical problems, intellectual problems, social problems. That's how we've all done it ever since the year dot, and we started being this social communal animal that we are. Kids learn through play.
Do we all learn through play?
Yes, absolutely.
Because there's something that I didn't realise as a kid that I was learning through play, but it definitely was the best way that I learned.
But this is my point. When we get to a certain age, we stop using this really, really important 2-word phrase because it's childish, it's stupid. We live in the real world now. We're adults, right? But we should use it more as adults. And that is simply, let's pretend. As soon as you've created that, you've created an entire space where you can play with anything.
Mm.
Whether that be out in the world in front of you or whether that just be in your mind. You can throw around ideas, you can work out scenarios, you know, because you've given yourself that little bit of space to just suspend reality for a little while. And we don't use that enough as adults. And I think we should.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I fell upon play again by accident.
Mm.
I went to an acting workshop.
Okay.
I've actually had the tutor of the acting workshop on here. His name is Niall. Really worth going to listen to what Niall has to say about play.
Mm.
But yeah, he opened my eyes back up to play,
Yeah,
and it's amazing how many worries that takes away from you
absolutely. And
when
then
you go that this is a game.
the beauty of play
Yeah.
is that it opens up every possibility.
Hmm.
So if you're no longer laughing at a situation and you just start playing with it, what, you know, you're screwed anyway. It's not working for you. Do something,
Yeah.
right? Play with it.
So
then
play doesn't just have
that
to work for
introduces
theatre,
you.
does it? It
No,
can work in
in
all
all
aspects
forms
of
of
life.
life, all aspects of life,
Yeah.
especially within uh, mental health
Mhm.
and stuff. Really important within mental health. Very important in schools because, as I say, through imagination and pretending and play, you create your thinkers, you create your inventors, you create your philosophers. You know that are needed to help us advance spiritually and physically on this planet as a species. You know,
Mm.
once we stop doing that, we're just uh, slaves, drones, automatons.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, 1984. A lot of people go, "Oh yeah, you should read 1984. It's really true." No, it is. It's really true. It's just put a little bit more prosy and poetically.
It almost feels like 1984 is, if you've read it or seen the film or seen the play, it does feel like it's right around the corner now, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It feels
Everything's
it started coming around, I feel, around the year 2000. It
yeah,
started something changed around that millennium time.
yeah.
Terrorist became
Well, that became the
commonly
new fear, didn't
the
it?
new
Because
fear.
all of a sudden the
Mhm.
traditional fears weren't working. The economy weren't doing too bad.
And then yeah, so then this new form of control
Mm,
through fear,
yeah,
and a lot of things that don't need to stay in place have stayed in place.
mm,
Similar with COVID as well. So
yeah,
then COVID came in.
yeah, and
There was all
there's
these rules put in place to protect us against COVID.
mhm,
Then when we didn't need to be protected from COVID anymore, some
yeah.
of the rules stuck.
Well,
W-
yeah,
w-
because well,
Why?
that's the other thing about COVID. What COVID showed me, it showed me two things. COVID showed me two things. COVID showed me just how lonely people really are,
Mm,
you know, and how difficult it is for lonely people to reconnect, you know. And the other thing I saw was something that it was lovely, man. It was beautiful. And that was people that would normally not give you the time of day in the street suddenly helping people,
mhm,
started acting in a social way, you know, rather than competing against each other. We realised we're all in the same boat, bailing at the same frequency. So, you know, why are we creating these barriers? And
mm.
those barriers started slowing down
So there
and
was
falling.
some good came from it, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I remember back, it's 4 years ago now that it all started, and at the time, I remember there was a lot of people would say things just before it was, it started in all the big lockdowns around the world started in March, April
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
but in February, it was a big conversation point, and people would be saying, "Yeah, but I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and
mm,
me, and like, how is my life going to
yeah.
adjust to looking after others?" Whereas once we got into the lockdowns and the sporting community,
We suddenly realised it wasn't
it
me. It
wasn't me
was
anymore.
mum. It was dad.
Mhm.
It was my mate down the road.
Yeah.
It was yeah, all these people that you took for granted, basically,
Mm.
right? So yeah, we started doing things for them,
And
but
maybe we don't hold on to that enough. We haven't held on to that,
we're not necessarily encouraged. We're more
mm,
encouraged to compete
to go back
than we
to.
are to compromise.
Mhm.
You know, to help. Yeah, it might be a pain in the ass, but at the end of the day, you all get something out of it.
So there was around that time, there was community champions
Mm,
that weren't cheered enough, was there?
no, no.
Obviously, there was in
Uh,
the NHS,
yeah,
and
and
again,
rightfully
but
so. Yeah.
yeah, and we all cheered them. We didn't cheer them enough with their pay rises,
Well, no, we cheered them until we suddenly went.
we-
Actually,
yeah.
yeah, uh, yeah. Uh, what scared people, what I think scared the establishment was the fact that people started acting like socialists, and we can't have that now. People helping each other out. God damn it,
No.
that's never good. I mean, what good has socialism ever given us? Like,
Well, I think there's a. See, I would like to think there's a. We talk about like capitalism, socialism,
mm,
and we say there's like it's got to be one or the other.
mm.
See, I feel that that's not right. That it
But
has to be one or
that's
the
my
other.
point.
I think there is somewhere in between
The true
that
art of
we're.
politics is compromise.
Mm,
It's not saying that you're right all the time or pointing out where someone's wrong, right? It's having the balls to go, look, I don't always agree with you, but I can see the good points.
But no politician does that.
Because it's all
No.
about the party. It's all
Mhm.
about the power. It's all about the survival of
Mhm.
the party to maintain that power, right? And they don't give a toss who they trample on. I mean, an example. I'm not saying that this is why she won the election, but it bloody helped. But in 1983, when Thatcher came up for a second election, she won by a landslide, right? Before that, yeah, she was really suffering in the polls. They were actually talking about Thatcher not winning the election, you know. But then the Falklands kicked off. She sent out a task force. We kicked the shit out of the Archies. Everyone was happy. Nationalistic pride was great. Thatcher won a war. Let's vote for her. But didn't we actually learn anything from the fact that she like just taken all free school meals and free school milk away from kids that wouldn't necessarily have access to
Mhm.
such things? You know, haven't we smelt a rat yet about the fact that she's not using any of that money that we've just spent on buying houses to build more houses? Hasn't anyone smelt a rat on that?
I guess this is the problem with a lot of politicians, is that they're not balanced in the things that they do. Like
No.
and we might take one thing that they do and say, "Oh, right, you need to be the leader of the country now," for
Mm.
one element that they do. So we get to this point with politicians where they're like, right, they're good at this, so they can lead the country.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
They're,
no, they're saying the right
they're
things.
saying the right things at that time, so
Yeah,
they can do
yeah.
all the other things. But
Election time has just become a sales pitch, right? There's no real policy. There was one guy a few years back who suddenly come up with a few policies. We decided he was a complete nutter, hated
Mhm.
Jewish people, yeah, and was strictly anti-Semitic. Yeah, there were things that he'd done that was out of order and somewhat offensive to
Yeah.
certain communities. But he was the first politician I've heard in my lifetime that actually had a policy, and it wasn't about personality and just saying what people wanted you to say and playing up to the crowd. It wasn't about that. He actually had some ideas, whether they would work or not. First politician I've known that's had an idea and said, like, we should be doing this, but people
Mhm.
ridiculed him because he looked a certain way, because he believed a certain thing. Stop looking at the personality of the politics and look at the substance of the
Yeah.
politics.
No, I don't think the social landscape would allow an odd-looking person
Oh God, no.
to be in charge.
I'd never be in
No,
charge.
no.
I'd never be in charge, mate. And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Trust me.
yeah, no. We're not
Yeah.
when I spoke about Danny getting into politics, it wasn't because I'm actually saying I agree with all your opinions, Danny.
No,
It's because
no one should agree with my opinion.
no,
All
there
my
there
opinions.
are some opinions you have that are valid.
But that's it.
But
That's
that's
it.
with
But
everyone.
that's the very
That's it.
definition of politics.
Mm,
Politics is the disagreement
yes.
between two ideals or two groups of people. Yeah, the art of politics is creating that compromise where you can get that warring faction and that warring faction to actually come together to create an idea that has all the good points from one side and all the good points from the other side, and the
Mhm.
bad things are just thrown to one side and forgotten about because you strengthened your own argument.
So where do these ideals come from within you?
Um, that's a bloody good question. Where do they come from in
Yeah.
me? Through my own personal experiences. I understand how lonely I felt when I was in France. Um, I understand how empty I felt growing up when my mum went through her bouts of cancer and stuff like that. Um, I've always felt like as the youngest child, I'm there to create mirth, to look after, to mend, and to keep happy, keep ticking over. You know, and that's what all I want to do is just try and create some sort of happiness, make people forget about any issues, any problems they've got, and to be able to achieve that, well, it's really simple. You've just got to stop expecting so much of people. You wouldn't expect that much of yourself. So why should you expect it of others? Don't try not to judge. Yeah, you'll have your initial judgment. Oh, he looks a bit shifty, and that I get a lot. Um, but don't base everything that you want to know about that person on that first initial judgment. talk to them, proper talk to them, really talk to them, find out what makes them tick, find out their story. Because again, theatre, life, politics, everything all comes down to one important thing, and that is the story. We need to sit down a little bit more and start listening to people's stories.
Mm.
And we'll start realising that we've got a lot more in common than we have that divides us. And if we still feel divided, then at least we've created a space in which we can discuss it on a level without someone going, "Oh, but you're not, you're being this, you're being that." No, I'm not. I'm just actually putting the truth in front of you. Whether or not you've got the balls to actually tackle it, or you want to sit there just telling me what the problem is all the time, right? That's up to you. But if you're just going to tell me what the problem is all the time, I'm not going to listen to you until you've come up with a viable solution or an idea at least that could be worked upon or added or, you know, built upon.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in just sitting there going, "Oh, this is wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong." Well, you must know what's right then. Well, no, I don't. How do you know it's wrong? Weird philosophy.
No, a very important one, Danny. Tell me a little bit more about the points in your. I touched on you've had some highs and lows within your acting career.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit some of the highs.
A lot of the highs have actually been, a lot of the highs came from when I went off and started getting some work in and started acting professionally. Um, One of my biggest highs was still being able to come back to where I started, to be able to impart important knowledge, important information, such as if you're going into acting, the most important word that you should learn to forget and ignore is the word no. Yeah? It's not a personal statement, it's not a personal judgment. It just means that you're not fitting the idea that they've got in their head. Right? That's
Are you referring to an audition?
yeah, when it comes to auditions and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, yeah.
And being part of something.
Yeah. Yeah, never be afraid of the word no. It doesn't mean it's the end. It doesn't mean it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
It just means move on to the next one. And you keep doing it and keep going until eventually someone goes, "Actually, yeah, you're fitting that picture in my head. I'll take you."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it won't click for everyone all the time. It never really clicked for me, to be honest. I ticked over, done background work, done some featured work, that sort of thing.
Advert in the Sun paper.
Yeah, hairy armpits, and yeah. So it's never really kicked off. But what I get the
But
buzz from is actually being able to go back. And when you've got the young people that are going, "Oh, how do I do this? How do I get into acting?" Because I didn't really have anyone that could help me in that way
see, isn't it
at that
funny? So
age.
I'm sitting here, and when I ask you about your highs in your acting career, you're jumping straight towards like, what did I do? What achievements did I make? But I am asking more in a way of about the things like when I first met you, you were in a pantomime, and one of the lead roles in a pantomime that was a massive community pantomime.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I
But
so from an outsider, I see that you haven't even touched on like your panto days.
no, I loved my panto days.
Mm.
Some of the best days I ever had. But it's still nothing more rewarding for me than being able to impart knowledge to someone that I recognise would have been me at that age.
Hmm.
I'm able to be able to answer the questions that they have. Whereas at the time, I didn't feel that I had people that could answer my questions. So I fumbled around blindly in this business we call show, you know, and I've stumbled across some good parts, I've stumbled across some crap parts, I've been disappointed, I've been elated, um, and that's all great personally, you know, but I like to think that one of my achievements is being able to be accessible. And I won't flower things up. I won't pretty it up and glamorize it. I'll tell you the truth.
Which is
No. That's it. The truth is no. Don't get offended by it. Don't be put off by it. It's just a word, 2 letters, nothing more. You know, obviously in other situations, no means no, but but when it comes to theatre, when it comes to acting, when it comes to general things in life, just because someone says no doesn't mean you can't find another way. And I'm learning that more than anyone because I have missed, ignored, and screwed up so many opportunities that have come my way, right? Through laziness, through apathy, through lethargy, through arrogance. I've let opportunities go. I'd probably be somewhere now if I had taken some of the opportunities that I'd taken.
When you
But
say you'd be somewhere, what do you envisage that somewhere to be?
I would be someone that wasn't worrying about where the next paycheck's coming from. How am I going to keep the roof over the head? How am I going to get kids' school uniform and stuff? I wouldn't be someone that was worrying about that.
Mhm.
I'd be comfortable. I'm not the sort of person that wants to earn all the money in the world. I just want enough to keep me comfortable and to keep those around me happy, and comfortable. Uh, I don't have visions of being a millionaire or anything. A lot of people, like this weird one. A lot of people talk about this whole glass half full or half empty thing.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Um, Half full means you're an optimist. Half empty means you're a pessimist. I'm neither of those. I like to think that I'm just happy that there's something in the glass. Because as long as there's something in the glass, you can work with that. You can do something with that. Instead of worrying whether it's going to work out or whether it's going to fail, there's something there. You can do something. As long as there's something in the glass, you're all right. You're grounded,
Mm.
sorted. Use what
So
you've
is
got
there
rather
water
than.
in the glass for you right now?
There's always water in the
There's
glass.
always water in the
Always
glass.
water in the glass. Sometimes you don't really recognise it because you're living in the water for so long. Wet is wet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, God, there's me with these weird metaphors again. People are going to listen to this podcast and go, that geezer really does need that medication, doesn't he? Seriously. Yeah. So forget the optimism, forget the pessimism. Just work with what you've got. Use what you've got and make the best of what you've got. And the reason why I say that so wholeheartedly is because I haven't. And I recognise that. This is all part of like my journey through this whole mental health thing,
Mhm.
and that's why I accept that. I take responsibility for that. So now I can slowly start moving on and creating a new future with new ideas, actually trying to get off my arse and make my ideas something real.
Are you open to talking a little bit about your mental health journey?
Yeah, absolutely. But I will tell you this,
Go
and
on.
this is one for you two viewers, but I really do need to use the loo.
Do you? We can
Yeah.
have a pause.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do another clap though, so
All
I
right.
can like
1, 2,
2, 3.
3. Oh, I really need
Right,
to
we're
use
going to
my-
come back in a moment with Danny's mental health issues. Problems? What's the correct term?
This used to be a 1 hour.
We're back in the room. So, we're back in the room. So, yeah, we're learning as we go along with these podcasts. Like I say, we're about 20 episodes in, and something that's quite important to do is let your guests go to the toilet if they need to.
Well, yeah, it does help, especially with the thought process.
Yes. So here we are back, and on that little break there, we started having a conversation about something else, didn't we? We started having a
Yeah.
conversation about an idea that you've got for
Well, yeah, it's
a
just,
sketch. Just one of these random ideas that you come up with
You
while
know,
you're sitting on the toilet or something.
yeah, basically, actor goes to audition
Hmm.
and does what he needs to do for the audition. And they sit down and they start asking the questions. The question is, do you identify as any other gender? No. Right. Okay. Do you identify as homosexual? No.
And this is
Right.
in an audition
An
environment.
audition environment. Do you do you class yourself as an ethnic minority? No. Uh, ah, um, well, as you don't seem to tick these boxes, we can't give you the part. Yeah, but hang on. Isn't that discrimination? Yes! Yes, it is. Yes, oh, we can tick that box. You get the part. Well done. And that's the audition process these days. It's
Well,
a box ticking exercise.
you say it as a joke. I've seen it as a reality, especially in this like last 5 or 6 years. Now I'm all for inclusivity.
Yeah,
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 that's first
absolutely.
of all, and I think there should be opportunity for everyone.
Mm,
However, I have found my inclusivity has been taken away.
mm,
There is I sign up to this thing called Spotlight, which is the major casting network
yeah,
within the UK. Um, I would say 70% of the jobs on there, I no longer fit any of the criteria.
yeah.
Um, and I want there to be a balance. I want there to be opportunity for everyone.
Hmm.
But also I'm driving my own career,
Yeah,
and there is some selfishness within that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but also there is a lot of other white, middle-aged, straight males.
God, yeah. I mean,
So what are we just now just not going to include
well,
those?
it's
Is
quite
it no
sad.
longer about talent?
It's not necessarily about talent. As I said earlier,
And I'm
it's
not saying I'm not getting those jobs because I'm the most talented
no,
person in the
no,
room or the
no.
least talented person
You
in the
see,
room.
I've always, as I said earlier, I've always said that if if you don't fit the image of the character they've got in their head,
Mhm.
yeah, then obviously you're
Yeah.
not right for the part. It's not
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because of who you are, what you are.
Yeah.
It's because you're not fulfilling the picture they've got in their head as
Mhm.
the director, as the producer, or whatever.
Yeah, and you're not part of that story.
No,
Yeah.
no, right? And that's fine. That's fine. But having to cast someone because you're frightened that someone will say, "Oh, you're being racist," or "You're being sexist," or "You're being homophobic." It's sort of like doesn't fulfill the audition criteria.
Mhm.
You're auditioning for a part, not to fulfill a criteria.
See, this conversation as well is quite vast in the fact that it even goes down to things like the Oscars.
Yeah,
The Oscars, there's a box ticking exercise
exactly.
going on with that now.
Because we're frightened that we might offend someone.
Yeah, rather than going, this is the best film,
Mm,
this is the best director, we're going, no, this director was black and we gave it for the last 10 years to a white guy.
mm,
And so, yeah, there needs to be balance. And I think the opportunity needs to be open,
mm.
but the art doesn't need to be constrained.
No, no,
Yeah,
absolutely,
the art doesn't,
absolutely.
and I feel like this feeds into the 1984
Hmm.
control
Yeah.
that especially people from the LGBTQ plus
Hmm.
community would even they want things to be open and more inclusive.
Yeah.
Whereas actually by putting all these little boxes, we're constraining everything and we're controlling
I
everything.
had I had years ago when I was looking for normal employment.
Mhm.
I went to the job centre. Job centre for all you young people is a place where we used to go to look for work. Nowadays we do it all online, um, and you have to fill in certain forms and everything else, and have interviews, etc., etc. So they gave me this form, and it's the first time I remember being confronted by this list that said, um, "What nationality are you?" And it had this list: white British, black British, white Irish, and it's like, wait a sec. I'm looking down all these lists, Asian, etc. And I thought, well, the thing that I am isn't on here. So I wrote on the bottom of the form, got a little box, and right next to that box, I wrote human, and I ticked that box. They refused to give me any help or any benefits
Mhm.
or anything, right, until I actually told them what my ethnicity was. And
Mm.
it's like, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. That's got nothing to do with it. Why should that matter? Why do you have to compartmentalize something? Surely a list like that and compartmentalization
Mhm.
actually exacerbates the problem, because you're actually creating defined borders as to what is and what isn't acceptable.
So going back to the art within that, that
Mm.
this is happening within the entertainment
Yeah.
industry as a whole, whether that's theatre, film. Um, yeah, it's happening everywhere. How do we find inclusivity for everyone and without controlling the art itself?
Well, that's
Because
the
art can't be
thing.
controlled. Because we touched on that. It's about
Mm.
art is about play,
Mm.
and you can't go right. I
It's
can
about
only
suspension of reality.
yeah, I can only play with this ethnicity.
Yeah.
I can only play with this person of this sexuality.
Yeah. Easy,
He's-
tiger.
yeah, but if we do that, then we're not playing again.
No,
we're
no,
not
we're not.
we're
We're
not
not.
creating.
We're not. We're just rolling the dice and taking the move.
Hmm.
There's no room for improvisation, free thought, association, anything like that. But again, it's all part of the method of control. By dumbing all that down, we dumb everything else down. And then when we're all arguing about whether knocking down a statue in Bristol was the right or wrong thing to do,
Hmm.
yeah, you've got a government that's bombing the shit out of some small oil-rich country that you know will later be having their people come over to our country in little boats to, and then we've got another excuse to say, well, it's all their fault coming over in a boat. How can 7 people or 13 people that are trying to flee what is can only be described as an apocalyptic situation after years of bombing and
Hmm.
whatever. How can we say that it's their fault that we've got all the problems in this country that we have because they're coming over in boats? That makes no sense. No sense.
Hmm.
What it actually comes down to is the fact that we spent so long bombing these countries when really we should be using, well, now more than anything, we should be using the money that we used in armaments and bombs and guns and everything else to start rebuilding what we destroyed, make their world more livable rather than expecting them just to get on in the destruction that we've created.
Hmm.
Again, it comes down to taking that responsibility. They're not doing it out of choice. They're not doing it out of any other reason but because they want a better life. The reason why they haven't got a better life is one, they probably come from an oppressive political um, background or country or whatever, something that we're not used to as Westerners. Um, and we, I've lost my train of thought again. And yeah, as a result, we look upon them as an excuse for all our woes and all our fears and all our
Mm.
worries. And it's like, well, no, if we actually look at the root cause of the problem, we actually look at what is rather than what we perceive to be, then, we can start putting solutions in. We can start creating a world where we don't need to smuggle people into the country for them to have a better life because they already have their better life because we've actually repaired, because we took responsibility for what we did. And I'm not saying that what we did was bad. I'm not saying that what we did was good. I'm just saying that once you've made a mess, you've got to clean up after yourself. And
Mm.
that's what my mum taught me.
So we've talked a lot about the past and the present, the
Mm.
way the present world is. Where do you see things moving forward?
Moving forward, uh, we need to make the choice as a collective to give ourselves time. Time has become a commodity in so much as we've become a commodity. And you can buy and sell time these days. We call it employment. Um, but yeah, we need to be prepared to give some time to ourselves, to be able to spend the money that we've earned, to be able to enjoy the money that we've earned, to be able to enjoy the family that we've created, the friendships that we've created. And once we do that and give ourselves that little bit of space, and we just take a minute just to slow down, and maybe we can see things for what they really are. rather than just a minor inconvenience or a major inconvenience, depending on your point of view,
Mhm.
and just slow down. Again, you said about mental health stuff. Again, that's another one of the things that is adding to the pressures on the mental health system. Um, it took me a long time to realise that I had a mental health issue. Yeah, there was that whole blokey thing. We don't talk about that sort of thing. Um, and embarrassment, embarrassment about who I was or how I perceived myself to be, the things that I was doing out of habit that weren't necessarily healthy. Um, but I was denying that. It's just what happens in it. I wasn't really looking at the damage it was causing, not just to myself, but to people around me. Um, and it got to a point where I needed help, really, and I couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. Went to the doctor, as I say, didn't want to do the meds, so well, there's no help for you. Uh, so I decided I'd deal with it myself. Stupid. um,
Danny knows best.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's my problem. I'll deal with it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's pretty much was my philosophy for a long, long time. My problem. I'll deal with it. Enough said. Um, but I didn't have the strength for that. I didn't have the mental capacity for it. I didn't have the understanding or the clarity of thought. I didn't have any of these tools to be able to deal with it. And when I finally opened up and said, all right, I do need help, and I tried to look for it, again, it wasn't there. It just wasn't there unless I had copious amounts of money that I could throw at it. And it's
Mm.
like, well, no, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And it made me realise just how much of a poor relation the mental health area of the NHS, how poor it really is. Um, and it's simply because they know that they haven't got a super wonder drug that will wipe it out. You said that mentioned your cure. Uh, there could be a cure for it. I don't think that there can be a cure for mental health issues.
Yeah, I think
You've
to
got to,
go back that to call it a cure was the wrong thing,
yeah,
was the
yeah,
wrong
yeah,
term. I think it's is a supporting mechanism,
yeah.
and
The first steps that I learned was in acceptance.
mhm. So
Yeah,
there's many things, aren't there, that you can
mm.
do to help yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Don't be ashamed of what you've done. Yeah, don't be down on what you've done. What you've done
Mhm.
is create who you are today, right? Whether you like that or not, it doesn't matter, right? It's whether you're going to do something about it, and whether you've got the strength to want to do something about it. And I did. I did. I wanted to do something about it. I ended up getting therapy, and that started working for a really good long time through West Essex Mind. Um, and after 12 weeks, there was no more funding. So, what does that mean? I'm better now?
Mm.
I wasn't, because I had to go back into therapy. I had to go and find more therapy. Again, West Essex Mind helped me out with that to such a point, and I can understand that because they're a charity. They haven't got unlimited funds, you know. But I think that there should be a lot more, just as much concern that was showed for COVID, or would be shown if Ebola was in this country, or if the plague had returned. We'd be running around like blue ass flies trying to find a cure, or a vaccination, or something that will stop it from happening. But we don't want to take that time with mental health. We don't. We can't afford to pay the professionals, so we've got nothing left but to do it amongst ourselves, amongst people that don't necessarily know the techniques, the tools, the methods.
Mhm.
You know, so they're just going for experience. And again, that goes back to something that how we discovered group therapy was back in the First World War. We tried to treat people with shell shock, etc., etc., but nothing was working. And then one day, a doctor actually saw a group of people actually talking about their experiences, and it made them better. It made them more open, more receptive, and they started to improve. and they started to fix and mend,
Mhm.
you know? And that's how we discovered the idea of group therapy. That's all we've got to rely on is group therapy. But I don't know, there's a lot more knowledge in the world of mental health these days. But the only way you'll get access to that is if you've got the right amount of money. And I think that's just fundamentally wrong. Of course, there is the obvious answer is take pills. But yes, I understand that that works for some. But for a majority of people, just need someone to sit down and talk to them.
So tell me a little bit more about the things that have worked for you then.
What with regards to mental health,
Hmm.
as I say, accepting being a lot more responsible for what I do, not trying to shirk responsibility for my actions, and rather than seeing as the consequences of those actions, seeing as them as, instead of seeing them as a blight and like out of order and wrong and bad luck and all that lot, accept it for what it is.
Hmm.
That's the price you got to pay for what you've done. Whether it's good or bad, that's the price you pay. You either get a buzz out of it or you feel like shit. Right? Don't live there. Never live there. But, and I said this earlier, the greatest therapy that I've ever had, and I never realised it and until about last 10 years or so, but the greatest therapy I ever had was theatre. It was theatre. It gave me the place to play. It gave me the place to feel comfortable. It gave me the confidence that I needed to be open. And that is one of the things that drained from me so quickly was my confidence. I mean, even now, I'm nervous doing this,
Hmm.
right? Beforehand, it would have been, oh yeah, piece of piss, mate. Let's do it. Yeah, let's have a laugh, you know. But I'm actually I felt quite nervous
Hmm.
coming here today because, as I said to you earlier, people don't ask me for my opinions. I usually have to impose them upon them, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, so it's nice and it's strange, but again, it's all therapy. And by doing this, you know, it hopefully will make someone out there suddenly go, well, yeah, all right, maybe it isn't that bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's bad. It's really bad, right? It's going to be the worst that it'll ever get, right? But there's always something. There's always something. There's always something in that glass. As long as there's something in that glass, you've got something to work with.
So give me a little bit of advice for someone out there that has been to the doctor. The only option is to go on a waiting list to get professional therapy, or here's some pills in the meantime,
Well, one
and they don't
thing,
want to take the pills like you.
well, that's the problem, isn't it? You start taking the pills. They say after you've taken them for 2 weeks, right? Um, if you want to come off them after 2 weeks, you need to go and see your doctor, right? And when you go see your doctor, he says, yeah, it's going to take about 6 months to get you off these pills.
Mhm.
Back on it only took me 2 weeks to get hooked on them.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's going to take you 6 months. Otherwise, it's going to be. I haven't got that time. That's another 6 months on top of the time that I've wasted trying to fix myself in a in a rational, sane way.
Mm.
You know, so it's an extra monkey on your back. It's an extra pressure. It adds to your mental problems because all of a sudden you go, well, it was easier when I was on the pills. So you keep taking the pills, and then in effect, in time, those pills no longer work. So you go to a psychiatrist. There's a difference between a psychiatrist, in my opinion, and a psychologist. A psychologist will sit there and listen. A psychologist will sit there, listen, and work out how to balance the chemicals in your body to make you feel happy again. Yeah, that's the difference, in my opinion. I'm not an educated man. I know nothing about these things apart from my own personal experiences, but that's how it comes across. Um, and there's not enough psychologists out there
Mhm.
because it takes a lot of time to sit down and listen to people. And time's a commodity,
Yeah.
you know. But for someone that's struggling, just remember that if you wake up in the morning, you're in the game. You've got a chance. Don't dwell in the past because the past has been. There's nothing you can do about it, right? Whether it's good, bad, whatever. learn the lessons from it. You know, from learning them lessons, it makes you stronger as a person. It makes you more understanding and accepting of yourself as a person. So that immediately someone accuses you of something, it isn't on the defensive straight away. You suddenly go, yeah, all right, maybe I was being a bit of a tosser. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you find yourself being more accepting of others' criticism. Because even in the acting world, people just don't like criticism. Oh, I don't read the critics, darling. No,
Mm.
no, no, never read the
It,
critics.
it's funny that I would like to say I try and embrace the criticism
Yeah,
and try
some of it I
to.
find hilarious.
I've even done that with this podcast. So yesterday, I know this is going to go out in the future, but yesterday to me right now was the first time that I publicly told people where to go and
Yeah.
find these podcasts and what they were called. And there's sort of like 10 episodes
Mm,
up on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But yesterday was the first time I told people to go
mm.
and seek them out. This morning, I woke up to two really positive text messages.
There you go.
Two people, one person saying, this was wonderful to hear this open and honest conversation.
Mm.
This really inspired me to get back into theatre. And I was like, job done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
job done.
Absolutely.
And then another person said, well done, keep at it, keep going. I'm really looking forward to see where this journey is going to take you.
Yeah.
And then another close friend said, I think you're trying a bit too hard, Martin. I think you. I think you'd. I
I think you
think.
tried too hard.
Well, I think. I think what. See, well, there's the construct. There was more to the conversation than that.
Yeah.
But the criticism came through. There's an element of a performer in me.
Yeah.
Because I am an actor at heart, and that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
And today, Martin's role as a chat show host.
Yeah, and so it's a natural thing for me to fall into those performer habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try and find some emotion within the speech.
Yeah.
But the thing when you're doing this, you got the camera right on top of you, you got the microphone right here. You have to be authentic.
Yeah.
You
there is no
can't
grey area.
you can't as soon as you go, oh, my passion is this. It's you see through it.
Yeah.
And so I take that constructive criticism and I recognize that.
Mm.
And yeah, maybe I need a moment sometimes to see the thing that I'm doing wrong.
Mm.
Or you can go with the criticism, what do they know?
Yeah. Well,
What do they
what
do they know? It's one of the two things.
There's a
isn't
lot of theatre pieces, criticisms of theatre pieces that I've seen, and you read it, and you can tell that the person that's written it
it? Mhm.
wasn't even at the show.
Yeah,
You know. So
yeah, or one of the biggest lessons that I learned with reviews from a play
Mm.
was 20 years ago at the Harlow Playhouse. Did Jack and the Beanstalk pantomime.
Mm.
Reviewer came in from the local paper. They normally do,
Yeah.
local paper, local pantomime. They'll do a fairly nice review. Well, this year a new person came along and they did a review, and the review was a big spread, and it said, "Why the hell were there men dressed as women? What's going on here? Why
Controversial.
why is there a middle-aged man dressed as a middle-aged woman talking about her underwear and all this blah blah blah?" It turns out that the reviewer had never seen a pantomime in her life because she'd come from the United States and said and does not get our humor. So it had all this heavy criticism and was tearing the thing apart, but they didn't understand what the thing was.
Yeah, the tradition.
Yeah,
The
so
essence of
you've
it.
got to look at the criticism in two ways, I guess. Yeah, for me, it's that looking at it. What do they know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not of an educated place to give me that opinion. Or like I say, that person that said to me that I'm trying too hard, I do value that person's opinion, and that does come from an educated place, and I do sit back and go, yeah, I was.
But also at the same time, when you're starting out on a project for the first time,
Mhm.
yeah, you're always going to sound as though you're trying too hard,
Yeah, because you want it to
right?
work.
Because you're making so many fucking mistakes along the
Yes.
way.
Yes.
You know that sooner or later someone's going to turn around and go, "Look, isn't it about time?"
Yeah.
Right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, no, because I actually believe in what I'm doing,
Yes.
and I believe in my ability to be able to do it,
Mhm.
which is something that I lacked for a long time. Was I This is when I wasn't doing theatre, um, bringing up my family and stuff. Uh, I became a house husband. Hey,
Mhm.
how very 21st century is that guy? Right, and yeah, I lost all confidence. All confidence. I used to love doing stand up. I started doing stand up, and I was loving doing it. I have ideas and plans with that, but at the moment, I feel I don't have that confidence to be able to do so. The reason being is because as an actor, performer, um, like all of us, we need that appreciation. We need that applause.
Mm.
We need that acceptance.
Yeah, the appreciation and applause definitely drives us forward.
Oh God, yeah.
It definitely
The best buzz I've had. I mean, as I said earlier, I
yeah.
alluded that I've done various
It
substances.
definitely feed
Right,
off of that.
best buzz in the world.
Mm.
Yeah, is a really appreciative audience,
Yeah.
and you don't get that many these days. In
In
so
many
much
aspects
as
of life,
you
yeah.
can pretty much stand on the stage and work out where your audience is from.
Mhm.
Yeah, if they're like lolling about the place, seem disinterested, you can pretty much tell that they watch most of their stuff online. Yeah, if they're talking to each other at a volume that everyone else can hear, you pretty much tell that they're an audience that sit in front of the telly. If you've got those that are sitting quietly, intent, and completely lost in what you're doing, you know that's a theatre audience. But you can tell what your
Mhm.
audience is, and as an actor, you should be able to adapt yourself
Mhm.
to it. So if you've got someone that's like looking a little bit disinterested, try and do something that suddenly makes them go, "Oh yeah, I'm there." You know, someone who's talking too much,
Mhm.
you should have the ability or the confidence to be able to do something that suddenly makes them aware of just how loud they are talking. You know, and this is where the skills of improvisation and comedy and things like that do actually come into their fore. You know, improvisation is probably the greatest tool an actor can ever have, because if you can improvise on stage, you can improvise in any walk of life
Mhm.
because it's
I was very so in the 20 plus years I've been doing acting, I spent a long time fearful of improvisation
mm,
because I came from a philosophy of a very structured
mm,
form of putting theatre together or putting film together.
yeah,
But acting, it was all structured. It was these are the lines, here are the movements, here is the thought process, working out all this mechanical
hmm
stuff. And so I was like, I can't come away from the mechanics of it. I just can't. Until I started taking on this philosophy of play.
mm.
And that there is no mistakes. There is no going wrong.
I think it was Edison that turned around and said, "Took me 500 attempts to create the light bulb. So what did you have? 499 failures? No, I just learned 499 ways of not creating the light bulb."
Hmm.
You know, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong as such. It's whether it works.
Yeah.
And
You got to keep trying and exploring different
yeah,
ways of making something
and
work.
the best example for that for me was when I started doing stand-up comedy.
Hmm.
I thought I was funny. Yeah, I wasn't. Big surprise there, guys. Right, I wasn't. You know, I was humorous, but I wasn't funny. Stand-up funny.
Hmm.
And when you're standing there with just a microphone and your own material, then you start realizing just how much you've got to be prepared to adapt to either your audience or to the material that you're using, you know? And the only way you can do that is by having the confidence to go off script.
Yeah.
Um, I had a discussion with an old um, theatre tutor of mine when I was at college, and it basically said we were having a discussion amongst ourselves as a group, and in the discussion, someone was saying, "Oh, you can teach people to be actors," and my philosophy is you can't teach someone to be an actor. Yeah, um, they either do it or they don't. You know. And then the drama teacher's come in. She's gone, no, no, no. You can teach people to be an actor. No, no, I don't think you can. Oh, and what would you know? Oh, from my experience. Oh, so what's the point of my job then? Well, the point of your job is to take that talent, that raw talent, yeah, smooth off the rough edges, polish it up, make it presentable. You know, there's people. We act. Everybody acts every single minute of the day.
Hmm.
You act away in front of your friends. You act away in front of your family. You act away in front of your work colleague. You know, you're always acting. Difference is, have you got the balls to stand up in front of 400 to 500 people, yeah, and just put yourself on the line, make a complete arse of yourself
Yeah, and I guess that's
without
where.
feeling any sort of remorse for doing it or
Mm.
guilt or some sort of
And
reaction.
actually, it is often considered that actors are the ones with a massive ego,
A lot
but
of them do.
and some of them do, but actually, on reflection, it's controlling that ego is a massive part
Mm,
of it,
yeah.
isn't it?
I've
Is
known
going
I've known a
that
lot
it's.
of people that have played a particular role,
Mm.
and then they've continued playing that particular role many months after that role has no longer been needed. And it's like, well, stop living part. It's at the end of the day, it's like putting on a coat.
Mhm.
See, I learned all this thing about Stanislavski technique, method, and all that. Yeah, I've never used any of them really. Maybe borrowed now and again, but I've never really. My technique, my way of characterization and building a character is when I was at college. This sounds really weird and creepy, right? But I used to sit in Broadwalk by the obelisk in the Harlow Town Centre and just watch people as they go by, and sometimes I'd make up little stories between people as they walk past each other and caught a glimpse or something like that, and I'd create a little story or something like that. And eventually I'd feel like I had an understanding of that person. So that if ever it was said that I needed to be this particular person, I've spent time knowing that person to a point. What I do is I borrow them for a little while, and like I said, like a coat, I put them on, and I become them for a little while with a little bit of me in it. And then when I'm done, take the coat off, give it back. Don't live the role.
Mm.
It's a job. Switch off. Otherwise, you just become, I don't know, a very very stereotypical lovey,
Mhm.
I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, acting is a job. Switch off. Never be afraid to be yourself. Always be yourself. If you offend people along the way, apologize. Ask why. Try not to do it again, and see if you can actually take away that offence from them by getting them to understand it from a different point of view.
Mhm.
And again, that's what I want to try and do with the mental health thing, the whole mental health thing. During COVID, what I realised was just how lonely people were and disconnected they were. We started up a group on a Friday with Harlow Rock School called Music Box. And it was basically all the instruments were out, just people turn up, have a chat, smack some drums, strum some guitars, whatever. You didn't have to be musically orientated or anything. The whole point of it was a space where you can come and just reconnect with people with no pressure. No pressure. If you didn't want to play an instrument, we'll sit down, we'll have a cup of tea, a few
Mhm.
biscuits, have a chat. It really didn't matter. And we are all very disconnected from one another. We need to reconnect. And one of the best ways of that, through play, through theatre, through imagination, through all the things that are almost denied us
Yeah.
if we didn't go out and find for ourselves. Because as my mum said, when I said I was going to be an actor, why don't you go out and get a proper job? Christ, my mum thought I was gay for about 15 years
Through
because
just
I
being the
wanted to be in theatre.
thespian.
So obviously you have to be gay to be in theatre, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, no, no. but she came from a generation that had different views, points and stuff, and you can't judge someone on that. If that's how they were brought up and that's the way, whether you think it right or wrong, you can guide them in the right direction if you think you can. Yeah. Otherwise, point out their fault, but don't chastise them for it. Re-educate if you can.
Yeah. So, have you got any words of wisdom that you would like to wrap this podcast up on, Danny?
Have I got words of wisdom? Oh dear.
Shall I narrow that question?
Yes, please.
Within the so we've talked a lot about the benefits of theatre for your mental health, and this is called the Creative Academy podcast.
Yeah.
We've also talked a lot about politics.
Yeah.
But yes, let's narrow that to giving words of wisdom for your younger self.
My younger self. Don't believe your own bullshit, because that gets you into places that you'll never understand, because you don't know yourself well enough. Believe in yourself. Accept responsibility for your actions and your faults. And just be honest with people. Honesty is important. Again, one of the most dishonest jobs in the world is acting, because you've got to pretend to be other people, and you've got to convince other people that you are other people, So in a way, it's a dishonest trait. But at the same time, it is just in the realms of play. Don't ever take it into your real life, because then it doesn't become the therapy that it is, the job that it is. And it all gets confused, and then you start setting yourself unachievable goals, which leads to disappointment, which then leads to downturns and mental health issues, etc., etc. Be yourself, believe in yourself, accept yourself, and don't hurt anyone along the way. That's it.
Nice. That's a beautiful way to wrap this up. What I'd like to do is, once this goes out, sit down and watch this. We'll both sit down and have a watch.
Have a laugh.
Have a laugh. And watch it back. Go, what the hell are those guys? What are they talking about?
You sure he weren't on something while he was doing it? No,
who knows?
Actually,
we'll sit back. We'll watch this, and then we'll do straight from watching this. We'll do another one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up, a part 2.
Yeah.
And we'll pull apart.
Yeah, we'll rip the arse out.
Yeah, out of what we've just said.
Yeah, winner.
Because we've said things that are wrong.
Winner.
Haven't we? We've said we try and cover our asses by saying we have no idea what we're talking about. In the process
of conversation, you're going to suddenly have an idea that you haven't fully formulated in your head.
Yes.
You know what you mean, but you don't know the words.
None of this was scripted.
No.
Yeah. There was some basic. I don't know if you noticed, but I've got some notes here of questions that I would like to ask Danny. I basically went about 15 minutes where I went, let's throw that. Let's throw that aside, because that isn't.
No, I'd like that.
That isn't going to work. Yeah.
I like ripping apart what I do. Yeah, I can't take it seriously.
Yeah, well, this is
no
how
point in taking everything seriously.
That's how we can build on it. That's how we build and make this better, and how we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So cheers, Danny.
No worries, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Madman for letting me say what I say.
All right. Thanks again, Danny.
Yeah, likewise.
Cheers, mate.
Good luck, people.
That was the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. I appreciate you joining us for this conversation. If you'd like to drop into more conversations, just search the BTS Creative Academy podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe.